Stop. Before you do anything else, I need you to think about the ground beneath your feet right now. Because everything you're about to hear is documented, drilled, dated, mapped, and it points to one conclusion that geology keeps confirming over and over in 5 completely separate locations across the planet. The Earth does not ask permission before it rewrites itself, and it does not take long. That's the part nobody talks about. Not the fact that coastlines change, we know that. The part that should genuinely unsettle you is the speed. Because when we say geological change, our brains go to slow, gradual, imperceptible. A million years of quiet shifting while humans go about their business. That is not what the physical record shows. What it shows is catastrophic, surgical, sometimes over in an afternoon. Here are 5 places on this planet where the ocean floor is holding evidence that most people will never go looking for. Each one answers a question, and each answer opens a worse one. In 1970, the deep-sea drilling project lowered a drill into the floor of the Mediterranean Sea. Beneath the standard layer of marine sediment, the drill hit something solid, continuous, crystalline, salt. Seismic surveys confirmed it wasn't a local deposit. The salt layer covered the entire Mediterranean basin. In places, it was 3 kilometers thick. Now hold that number for a second. 3 kilometers of salt does not appear by accident. Salt is an evaporite, it's what gets left behind when seawater turns to vapor. To produce a layer that thick, across an area that large, you need an almost incomprehensible volume of ocean to simply disappear. And that is exactly what happened. Roughly 5.96 million years ago, tectonic movement closed the Strait of Gibraltar. The Mediterranean lost its connection to the Atlantic. And then, cut off and landlocked in a region of intense heat and dry air, it evaporated. The whole thing. This is called the Messinian salinity crisis. And it is not fringe geology. It is accepted, documented, peer-reviewed science. But here is where it stops being an abstract geological fact and starts being something harder to sit with. The Mediterranean didn't become a shallow puddle. The basin sank. Without the water filling it, the floor of what is now the Mediterranean dropped to 5 kilometers below global sea level. Temperatures at the bottom exceeded 80 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure was 50% heavier than what we breathe today. From where Barcelona's waterfront now stands, 5 kilometers straight down, there was a blinding white salt desert stretching all the way to the coast of modern Lebanon. Not a sea, not a lake, a blistering, crushing, alien abyss sitting exactly where the most temperate, civilization-defining body of water on Earth is today. And there's one more thing about this story I'm saving for the end. Because the way the water came back is, somehow, the most disturbing part of all of this. 6 meters underwater, off the coast of North Bimini in the Bahamas, there is an 800-meter alignment of massive rectangular limestone blocks. Some of them are 4 meters long. The edges are squared. The arrangement is almost geometrically ordered. When it was discovered in 1968, the press lost its mind. Atlantis, lost civilization, ancient road. Geologists shut it down immediately, and correctly so. Core sampling confirmed the blocks are beach rock, a naturally occurring sedimentary formation. When saturated sand and shell material rapidly cements and then dries, it fractures along joint lines, producing shapes that can appear rectangular. Case closed, natural formation, move on. Except, natural jointing in beach rock is well documented. We know what it looks like. It produces irregular, jagged, unpredictable fracture lines, because that is what unguided stress does to rock. It does not care about straight lines. The Bimini blocks are different, hundreds of them, each broken to near identical rectangular dimensions, arranged in a clean 800-meter curve. And below that first layer, further documentation has revealed additional stacked alignments, meaning whatever mechanism produced this did it more than once, with the same result. So the official position asks us to believe that natural tectonic stress and erosion sheared hundreds of enormous limestone blocks into consistent rectangles and laid them out in a precise, extended curve. That explanation is almost certainly correct in its fundamentals. Nobody is finding Atlantis in 6 meters of Bahamian water. But the specific mechanics of how this particular beach rock fractured with this particular uniformity, that part remains genuinely unresolved in the geological literature. And the researchers who keep saying so are not conspiracy theorists. They are geologists, looking at shapes that natural jointing models struggle to cleanly replicate. 40 meters beneath the North Sea, there is a landmass. 10,000 years ago, Britain was not an island. A vast, fertile territory connected it to mainland Europe, filled with forests, rivers, wetlands, and people. We call it Doggerland. This is not mythology, it is physical. The University of Bradford has spent years conducting seismic mapping and physical recovery operations across the North Sea floor. Commercial dredging vessels regularly pull up thousands of flint tools, carved bone harpoons, mammoth remains, and fragments of human skulls from the seabed. The people of Doggerland are still up there in the water, in pieces, waiting to be found. The mainstream explanation for Doggerland's disappearance is correct. As the last ice age ended, glacial melt poured into the oceans. Sea levels rose, Doggerland shrank, and eventually went under. What the mainstream explanation tends to gloss over is how it actually ended. Around 6,200 BC, a section of the Norwegian continental shelf the size of Scotland suddenly collapsed. The Storegga Slide. 3,000 cubic kilometers of sediment dropped into the ocean in what was geologically an instant. The displacement generated a mega-tsunami. When that wave reached the low-lying plains of Doggerland, it was 20 meters high. The seismic record of tsunami deposits confirms this. The date aligns, the physics track, and what that means is this. The people of Doggerland did not have generations to migrate. They did not have years. They may not have had hours. Someone woke up that morning, built a fire, had no idea. By afternoon, everything, the forests, the settlements, the animals, the people, was gone, permanently submerged. In a single event, triggered by a piece of seafloor nobody living had ever heard of, an entire functioning European landmass ceased to exist. No coastal defense system built by any modern city could withstand a 20-meter wave generated by the sudden collapse of a continental shelf. That is not an opinion. That is structural engineering reality. 4 meters of water. Southern Greece, off the Peloponnese coast. The ancient city of Pavlopetri was rediscovered in 1967. UNESCO dates it to the Bronze Age, roughly 5,000 years old. It was an active port city. Real people lived, traded, and built there. Marine archaeologists from the University of Nottingham mapped it comprehensively. What they found was not ruins in the traditional sense. Intact streets, courtyards, stone foundations of 2-story buildings, complex water management, infrastructure, all of it sitting on the seafloor exactly where it was built, as legible as a modern architectural plan. The orthodox explanation. Around 1000 BC, a series of earthquakes struck the region and the ground subsided, dropping the city below sea level. That explanation is reasonable. Tectonic subsidence happens. But here is the problem. When earthquakes hit coastal cities hard enough to drop them into the ocean, they destroy the architecture first. That is what seismic force does to unreinforced masonry. It shakes it apart. When tsunamis strike coastlines, they don't just flood, they scatter. The kinetic energy of the water grabs debris and throws it for miles. And slow coastal erosion from rising water grinds limestone into sediment over centuries. Pavlopetri shows none of that. It was not shattered, not scattered, not ground down. It was set down. 9 acres of Bronze Age city, descending intact into the Mediterranean with enough uniformity that the street grid survived. For that to happen, the tectonic drop had to be so even, so consistent across the entire footprint of the city, that the stone structures experienced no differential stress sufficient to collapse them. The earth swallowed a functioning port city whole and left the architecture standing. We do not have a clean model for exactly how that happened. Back to that Mediterranean salt desert, 5 kilometers deep, 80 degrees at the bottom, 2.5 million square kilometers of dead, white nothing. Then, 5.33 million years ago, the Atlantic came back. Buried beneath the modern sediment of the Strait of Gibraltar, seismic reflection surveys have mapped a massive, V-shaped channel carved directly into bedrock. The University of Barcelona confirmed it. 200 kilometers long, 250 meters deep. Not carved by a glacier, not carved by any slow process. Carved by moving water. Specifically, by the Atlantic Ocean forcing itself back through a breach in the Gibraltar Barrier and dropping into the empty Mediterranean basin below. This event is called the Zanclean Flood. The official framing is measured. Tectonic subsidence gradually lowered the Gibraltar sill until the Atlantic breached it. The basin refilled. But that channel tells you how it actually went. Fluid dynamics models published in Nature estimated that at peak discharge, water was moving through the strait at a rate 1,000 times greater than the modern Amazon River. The force of that flow physically tore through solid rock, gouging a canyon 250 meters deep into the bedrock of the seafloor. The entire Mediterranean, a 5-kilometer deep depression spanning a continent, refilled in somewhere between a few months and 2 years. Sea level within the basin rose by more than 10 meters per day. We have no human reference point for a flow 1,000 times the Amazon cutting through solid rock. There is no analogy. There is no modern equivalent. The closest thing our civilization has ever modeled for this is a simulation. And even the simulations carry significant uncertainty because nothing like it has happened within recorded human history. A dead, 5-kilometer deep, continent-spanning abyss became a functioning ocean in less time than it takes to complete a pregnancy. Here is what connects all 5 of these. The ocean is not a boundary. It is not a fixed line on a map that stays where we drew it. It is an active mechanism, one that buries landscapes under 40 meters of water in a single afternoon, lowers intact cities to the seafloor without breaking a wall, fills a continent-sized abyss in under 2 years, and leaves behind 3-kilometer thick salt deposits as the only evidence it was ever gone. Every one of these events is in the physical record, drilled, mapped, dated, and confirmed by the institutions we trust to tell us how the planet works. None of them waited for a convenient moment. None of them announced themselves. The gap between where modern coastal cities sit and what the ocean is demonstrably capable of is not theoretical. It is measurable. And the record suggests it is much smaller than the distance feels from the inside of one of those cities on a calm day. Which of these 5 do you think the physical evidence makes the strongest case for? The salt desert, the road, the drowned country, the intact city, or the flood that refilled a sea? Leave it below.